guys, it's Quinlan. Welcome back to my channel. So for today, I decided to go ahead and do a Cruel Prince series review, which I'm really excited about. I know that if you watched my last wrap-up, you'll know that I talked a little bit about Cruel Prince, and I did end up finishing Wicked King and Queen of Nothing at the beginning of this month, so I will get to talk about them later in a couple of weeks when I do my May wrap-up. But I won't be able to get into spoilers, and I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the series in a little bit more like of the spoilery manner, and I don't know, I was just excited and I wanted to talk about it a lot because I do feel like it's pretty popular, but I only read it obviously really recently, so I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts. I'll go ahead and talk about it a little bit non-spoilery first, so that if you haven't read Cruel Prince at all, you can go ahead and stick around, but I of course will let you know before I get into the spoilers. So as you can tell, I got the Cruel Prince box set because I knew I was going to read the whole series because I'm a bit of a completionist. I really like to finish a series even if I don't necessarily like it all that much, which might be kind of weird, but I like to see a series to its completion unless I really didn't like it or unless I feel very satisfied by the ending of like the first couple of books or whatever. So there's not a lot of series that I start but don't finish, or at least that I don't intend to not finish. So I got the box set all at once, and basically I just want to talk about a few non-spoilery things and then I'll jump into it. I think a big thing for me was that I ended up really liking it, but it was kind of interesting for me because in the beginning, especially in the first book, I ended up not really liking the characters all that much, and I felt like they were kind of weak, whereas I really enjoyed the plot in the first book. But then by the end, in Queen of Nothing, which is the third book in the series, I ended up kind of really enjoying the characters, especially the main characters, and not really liking the plot that much. So it was kind of a trade-off, but if you've watched my videos, you know I say this a ton, but what really makes the story for me is the characters. So the fact that the characters were there, but the plot was maybe not where I wanted it to be, didn't really matter to me. I felt like the trade-off was fine, although I kind of would have preferred kind of the political intrigue of the first book with the character development of the last book. But I just felt like it ended up rounding out really nicely, and I would say I really enjoyed this series overall. I would maybe give it 3.5 or 4 stars. I'm not really so sure because I do feel like I really enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say it's like one of my favorite reads. Definitely wasn't like life-changing or anything. It was just kind of like a fun spot, and I really enjoyed the romance, which is kind of a big reason that I read it and stuck with it even when I didn't like the characters, but I'll talk about that later. And then another thing that my friend and I noticed, because we were actually reading the series at the same time, was like kind of how small the world is, because if you, here, let me see if I can get this book out. If you take a look at the map in the first, well, in all the books, sorry, right here, you would see it and you'd be like, oh, that's interesting, you know, maybe they'll venture around the map and maybe they will end up there by the end. Maybe they'll explore the entire map by the end of the 3 books. But what you realize is that they kind of go venture the entire map in one book, like in one day, because their house is like on one end of the map and then their school is on another end. It's just very kind of contained, the world, whereas I'm used to really big fairy worlds, especially fairy worlds. I feel like fantasy worlds are usually huge, and even if they only take place in a couple of villages or in like a town, usually there's some sort of quest and they end up going to different places, and usually there's a really big world to explore even if the world is not fully explored within one book or even the entire series. And on that note, like, I'm used to worlds, especially like Sarah J. Maas, she has like different continents, and obviously it's not an entire world, but I just felt this world was very small in comparison. Anyways, with that being said, that's kind of all for my non-spoilery thoughts, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into the spoilers. I'm going to take it one book at a time, so if you have read Cruel Prince but you haven't read the rest of the series, you can still stick around because I'm just going to talk about Cruel Prince in the beginning and then I'll move on. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching if you just stuck around for the non-spoiler section, and I will see you later. So now for the spoilers for Cruel Prince. So I don't really have much to say because I kind of talked about it in my wrap-up, and to be honest, I didn't make this video just to talk about Cruel Prince. I mostly made it to talk about the later books. But to be honest, I kind of hated everybody in this book. I really didn't like Jude. I understand she was being bullied, but I'm used to like when characters are like broken and stuff like that. I feel like Sarah J. Maas, I'm sorry to bring up Sarah J. Maas so much, but I just love her. Sarah J. Maas does like a really good job of writing characters and their kind of like emotional turmoil, and especially like how they've been like emotionally scarred and stuff like that, and she usually gives them really compelling backstories. Whereas this one, yes, she was being bullied, but we didn't see kind of the biggest extent of it, and yes, she was like humiliated a couple of times and it was pretty horrible to watch, but I didn't feel for her so much. And then when she would talk about kind of being like broken or cold or like a killer or whatever, I didn't really see that in her, to be completely honest, and it kind of annoyed me that she just kept going on and on and on and talking about all that stuff, and I just got really frustrated by her by the end of the book. And I really only stuck with this series because I knew who she would end up with, and I'm not going to spoil it, but I felt like this wasn't the strongest book in terms of characters, but what I actually really did enjoy was kind of the political intrigue, especially in like the second half of the book, where she's kind of deciding what to do with Cardan, and then kind of the like plot twist at the end where Oak crowns Cardan instead of like crowning Oak. I just thought it was really interesting and fun. That's kind of all my thoughts on Cruel Prince. Okay, so next, of course, is Wicked King, and for this one, I have a little bit more to talk about. So first of all, I just wanted to say I totally knew Taryn was going to betray her from the very beginning. Like, I totally saw that coming. I just, like, I knew it. Like, I absolutely was like, yes, hands down. As soon as, I forget who said someone was going to betray her, as soon as she said that, I was like, I know it's going to be Taryn. Like, she's just shady. You can't trust her, especially after that thing with Locke. She obviously doesn't care about family loyalty. She cares more about herself. And I feel like, I don't know, because I'm obviously not active in like any sort of fandom or anything, so I don't know a lot about what the general consensus is, but I feel like Taryn is like one of the more selfish characters in the book, and I feel like it's a little bit overlooked and it's kind of brushed over. But she's just very like self-centered, and she really only looks out for herself, which is just kind of crazy. And then the plot twist ending kind of got me, where he kind of betrayed Jude, where Cardan betrayed Jude. I was a little bit shook. I didn't see that coming, but at the same time, like, you can kind of understand why he did it. Like, I wasn't super mad at him. I was just kind of shook. And I do think, though, that if I had to wait for the next book to come out, I would be mad. Like, I would be so mad, because I would want to know what happens immediately. So I'm glad I kind of waited until the series was, like, completed to read it. So I did think that Vivian was definitely kind of ignorant, and it made me kind of frustrated, because even though Jude and Taryn kind of hid how they were really treated as humans in the fairy world from her, I feel like she just should have been more like understanding and not like manipulated her girlfriend Heather like that. Like, I just thought that was totally like uncalled for, and I feel like it's basic human decency not to manipulate someone like that, especially like literally magically manipulate them. And then I don't know, I have kind of mixed feelings about Maddox, because I feel like where he's kind of like an interesting father figure, he's also just very bloodthirsty, but somehow Holly Black managed to make him like three-dimensional, where it's not like he just wants bloodlust, and that's kind of his like main goal, but he does have more complex emotions, and he does kind of care about his family, but bloodlust is just like kind of his main goal, which is kind of interesting. I felt like he was a very interesting character. I definitely felt like in Wicked King, I felt like the plot was a little bit lacking compared to Cruel Prince. Like, I felt like in Cruel Prince, there was so much political intrigue, and in this one, yes, it was about the courts and the spies, but like, she got captured, and I just didn't really know where the plot is going, and I tend to not like books where I don't feel like I have a general direction where I know the plot is going. Not in the sense that like I don't like plot twists, because I obviously love plot twists. I feel like they're so fun, but more in the sense of like, I don't like books where I don't feel like there's any direction that we're going in. Like, we're just kind of floating around and waiting for something to happen, and I just felt like that way a little bit. But I started to enjoy the characters a little bit more in this story, especially Cardan and Jude. So I think it kind of made up for the lack of plot, if that makes sense. Okay, and now moving on to Queen of Nothing. So again, if you haven't read Queen of Nothing, don't stick around. I'm just gonna talk about it for a little bit. I don't have too much to say, and I want to try to keep this video brief because I have noticed that in the past I tend to go on and on. I'm very long-winded, and I apologize. I get a little bit excited about books, and I'm kind of bad at keeping my thoughts very concise, but yeah, anyways, I did have to note that I started to really fall in love with like Jude and Carden, and I kind of was just waiting the entire time for like Jude and Carden to like really get together and to like kiss, and like, I mean, they've kissed, but like to like just to like get together and like admit their feelings for one another. Like that was honestly like kind of what I was waiting for this entire book. Like the plot was honestly just a device, and I kept getting annoyed because they kept getting separated and they didn't have any alone time, and I just wanted them to be alone and to like talk about their feelings and stuff like that. And that's kind of like the big reason that I cared about this book. And I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but I knew that Jude and Carden were going to end up together just because of like online spoilers. So when I read Cruel Prince, I don't honestly know if I would have continued it had I just read Cruel Prince on my own and not known really about like Jude and Carden. I was honestly kind of waiting for the romance to happen, and here's where it kind of culminated, because I am just like a sucker for romance. I still think that Cruel Prince honestly had like the strongest plot because I felt like it was new and you were like getting introduced to the characters, and then halfway through it became very like politically intriguing. I know I keep saying that, but I really do feel like it was super interesting when she like kidnapped Carden and like she was trying to figure out what to do. I just thought that part was super interesting. I do think Cruel Prince had the weakest characters, whereas I feel like Queen of Nothing had a weaker plot, kind of like Wicked King, and just in the sense that like, okay, there's a war going on, but it's like, I don't know, again, like I didn't feel like a big sense of direction from the plot, but what really drove me to like continue and love the story was just honestly like the characters, so it kind of made up for it in my heart. So I loved the romance. I felt like it was super special. The one thing that I would complain about in Queen of Nothing is like, are they actually going to give back the crown to Oak, or are they going to stay on the throne? Because now obviously now Jude is in power. I feel like they probably will, but I do feel like kind of like the story's not over yet. Like the whole point of the story was to give the crown back to Oak, and now Jude is queen, but like what does that do for us? Like that doesn't really do anything. Like I want to know what happens more. Like I feel like there's more story to tell, but I'm pretty sure the series is done, which is a little bit unfortunate. I do think that someday I might want to reread the story, especially Queen of Nothing, because of the characters. I think that's kind of it on my general thoughts. I am a little bit worried that I forgot something, because I'm pretty sure there was something that was like on the tip of my tongue when I was talking about Wicked King that I forgot to mention in Queen of Nothing. Oh, I bet it was Taryn. Like, I feel like they just forgave Taryn, like, for betraying her completely, and she's just such, like, a wimp, because she just followed Maddox, and, like, she just follows, like, whoever. Like, I understand she killed Locke, and that's kind of cool, I guess, and she's standing up for herself finally, but I don't feel like she ever was able to justify kind of, like, what she did to Jude and, like, how she betrayed her. And I feel like it was just completely brushed over and everyone forgave her. And I felt like that was kind of stupid. But that's just kind of a small thing. Anyway, that's it for my Cruel Prince thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. And thank you so much for watching. I had so much fun reading this series. And I would definitely recommend it if you haven't watched it, or if you haven't read it and you watched this video for some reason. I don't know why I keep saying that, because if you've read the series, then that's probably why you're watching this video. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in another video soon. Bye!